The May 12th, 2023 meeting of the Washington State Gambling Commission. All of the commissioners today are virtual. If you have any questions regarding the meeting, please contact Julie Anderson at julie.anderson@wsgc.wa.gov. The telephone lines are currently muted. When I ask for public comment, raise your hand and staff will unmute your line, and then you can provide your comment and remute your phone. If you're to unmute your cell phone, you need to press *6. When you provide comment, please clearly state your name, your contact information if you would like to receive a summary of all comments and who you are representing. Today's meeting will be recorded. And so I will go ahead and call the roll. Vice Chair Patterson. Here. Commissioner Sizemore. I believe he's here. Commissioner Lawson. And Commissioner Gibbs.
Present.
Okay, great. Glad you made it in. Thank you. The ex officios, do we have Senator Conway? I don't believe so. I see Senator Holy on my screen. Welcome. Representative Kloba. I don't believe she could make it today. And Representative Rude. Okay, I do not believe he's here. So at this time, I believe we are on tab 9, which is the strategic plan, which I believe is going with Director Griffin.
Good morning, commissioners, ex officios. Just also for the record, while commissioners are joining remotely, the Gambling Commission Lacey office is open to the public. We do not have any attendees, but it is open to the public for attendance as well. So just wanted to put that on the record. So yes, for you today, we're going to go through the strategic plan, goals, objectives, and strategies, so that we can get your feedback and hopefully finalize these topics or the goals, objectives, and strategies that staff has developed based on the input from commissioners over the last few months. And once we get your input today, hopefully we'll be able to move forward and finalize and publish a report, publish the plan, and get ready for implementation. So I have just a short PowerPoint for you today. Just to revisit how we got here, in September of 2022, we did engage staff, licensees, and our tribal partners to get their input and feedback on what the agency's internal and external assessments, or better known as a strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threat exercise. And we took that information and presented at the October meeting. You had a work session in which you reviewed the agency's mission, vision, and values, the results of those internal and external assessments. Staff shared with you our business initiatives or projects that we have or anticipate to be working on in the next 3 to 5 years. You also had a budget presentation to take into consideration, and then you reviewed the 2018 to 2023 strategic plan and the accomplishments that we've made in working through that plan and those goals. And so then based on all that information, during the work session, you provided thoughts on some possible goals and objectives for this new plan. In December of 2022, then staff presented you with goals and objectives based on the feedback that we had received, and feedback from commissioners at that time was go ahead and proceed with what we had drafted as goals and objectives. So staff worked January through April, fine-tuning those goals and objectives, and also developed strategies on how best to achieve the goals and objectives. And today then we're ready to roll out what we feel is ready for your presentation and input so that we can move forward. So next slide, please. Just to revisit, our mission is to protect the public by ensuring that gambling is legal and honest, and our vision is to maintain public confidence by conducting fair and effective gambling regulatory and enforcement programs, investigating illegal activities, building positive partnerships and relationships, and providing a workplace that allows employees to excel while still anticipating and responding to the evolving gambling industry. And then our values, we do value integrity, professionalism, respect, and diversity. So keeping all that in mind, Julie, next slide, please. I'm sorry, does somebody have a question? Okay, I think part of the slide is missing. Oh, okay, so, well, what is supposed to happen is the mission and the vision and the values are supposed to be at the top and at the bottom, and then that part is supposed to be in the middle. So, sorry, I don't know what happened to the slide there, but really the strategic goals focus on people, processes, problem gambling, and partners. And so collectively, these new goals then really encompass the mission, vision, and values of the agency. So we'll move forward and talk about each of these four, topic areas, really people, process, problem gambling, and partners. Those are not the goals, but those are just the themes of which the goals fit and really align with the mission, vision, and values of the agency. So let's see what other parts are. Oh, there we go. One more time. Okay, so that's what it was supposed to look like. Sorry. Okay, so the next slide, then just to touch briefly, I'm going to go through each of these. And so the goal really is to become an employer of choice that attracts and retains a highly skilled, valued, and diverse workforce. And to accomplish that goal, the objectives would be to attract and retain a highly skilled, diverse workforce. And to do that, the agency would recruit staff using efficient, effective recruiting practices, recognize and celebrate our employees, and explore professional development and growth opportunities for staff at all levels while promoting a good work-life balance. And then we also believe that attainment of the goal could be achieved by advancing institutional knowledge and creating a culture that embraces diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And more strategies to accomplish those objectives would be to implement a plan to identify, assess, and develop talent, to enhance succession planning and foster leadership continuity, because we do know that we are faced with a very large number of employees who will be eligible for retirement in the next, during this strategic plan period. Also, strategies to emphasize continued learning culture, and then develop and implement diversity, equity, inclusion strategies, as well as cultural, agency-wide cultural competencies, as well as fostering a sense of belonging. So before we move on, I'm going to pause. Are there any, and just seek commissioner input at this point, rather than going through all four goals. And so any thoughts, changes? I'll pause here. Okay.
I think it looks good.
Okay.
Agreed.
Okay. Thank you.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Definitely.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your input. So then we'll just move to the next one and we'll use the same process. So this goal just touches on process, but the goal really is to be a leader in gambling licensing, regulation, and enforcement. And to do that, the objective would be to promote a licensing, regulatory, and enforcement environment that is equitable and inclusive. Also develop and implement innovative strategies to conduct business effectively. excuse me. And then also develop sustainable funding strategies and improve prosecution of illegal gambling activities. And the strategies to accomplish those objectives would be to develop and maintain industry expertise and stay abreast of emerging trends, engage stakeholders and tribal partners for feedback, actively participate in national and regulatory groups. And that would be in terms of promoting regulatory enforcements for equitable and inclusivity. And then in terms of innovative strategies to make sure that we're conducting business efficiently, then we want to engage internal and external stakeholders and tribal partners to identify areas of efficiency, get their feedback on that, pursue innovative and improvements in terms of use of technology and agency resources. Those might come about more as we go through our website redesign, and most likely as a result of our modernization of our IT systems, as well as then adopting an organizational change management principles and embrace those practical applications. In terms of developing sustainable funding strategies, we would look to analyze similarly funded programs and agencies, explore rulemaking to allow fees to be responsive to economic shifts, and then also explore improvements to our billing methods and processes. In regards to improvement of our prosecution of illegal gambling activities, strategies there would be to engage with prosecutors early in the investigative process, explore other ways to seek prosecution, as well as developing a process to capture data on enforcement efforts. And that last one would most likely happen when we update and modernize our IT systems, because right now it's all done manually. So it's rather challenging. So any thoughts on these goals, objectives, and strategies that we've put together based on your feedback over the last few months?
I will add, if I may, I just want to express my appreciation for looking at the prosecutorial aspect and seeking to improve our batting average, I guess, of being able to bring some of these crimes to the full extent of the justice system.
Thank you, Commissioner Sizemore.
I have a question about that. I'm just curious to know briefly, what has stood in our way previously with regard to the prosecution of illegal gambling activities?
Well, at the federal level, it's a challenge, as other states have recently pointed out in their communications to the federal agencies in terms of online gambling, illegal online gambling activities. What we're seeking to do may not align with their priorities for prosecution and engagement, and so that has been a challenge, as well as also, challenges at the local level as well. Our gambling crimes are not something that they're familiar with. Sometimes it's very records intensive, and they're, they can be long, engaging investigations rather than just short. The case reports are quite long, and in some cases, it's an undercover activity, so it happens over a long period of time. And so I think just the engagement, as well as, it's not something that they run across on a frequent basis. And so education, outreach, and again, it has to fall within their priorities for that particular prosecutor and how much in terms of resources. So hopefully that answers your question, Commissioner Patterson.
It does. I mean, I think what I hear you saying is that this is our main focus, but other law enforcement agencies are not prioritizing these issues in the way that we are. And they don't have the expertise to deal with them.
Yes, yes. We're looked as upon the gambling, the gambling records and gambling experts. And so it's just, here you have a big case, and if you have a whole bunch of cases that are before you, it's just easier probably, to get through the many rather than one. So, but I'm not saying that's happening with all prosecutorial offices. So just more engagement will be helpful.
Hey, Tina, can I add one thing? This is Gary.
Oh, yes, please. Oh, Chair, is it okay if Gary Drumheller from the Assistant Director? Okay. Go ahead.
The other thing is these are nonviolent crimes. And so when a prosecutor's office has to prioritize their cases, the nonviolent crimes are going to go to the bottom. And so it makes it more difficult for us to get cases prosecuted. Or if we do, they sit on a prosecutor's desk for a long time. If they get to it, they try to settle it because it is a nonviolent crime. And those just don't hit the priority list for a prosecutor. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Chair, if I can add one more point on this, I guess. The director brought up the, federal landscape, and it is very difficult. And if they're not prioritizing these types of things, we can spend thousands, tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars generating cases, and then for them to, go nowhere. Has to be incredibly difficult and discouraging, I would imagine, for our folks out in the field doing the work. So one thing that I think, with this commission making a decision a couple of years ago of being a member state of NCLG's National Conference of Legislators of Gaming States, I think it provides an opportunity for us to be emphasizing this. And I think, Commissioner Patterson, if you maybe recall back to, I think, the Chicago conference, there was a beginning of some conversations going on with legislators across the country pushing for greater prosecutions at the federal level. So I think it's an important, and one of those things when you try to figure out what is the value of participating in these national organizations, and I think this is a perfect example of where we potentially can get really good benefit for the expenditure.
And I have just a comment. I don't need an answer today or anything, but maybe something to think about that I'm not sure is if there's any agency request legislation that we could put forward that could somehow help with any of this. I don't know what that might look like, but maybe something to think about.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay, we'll just go ahead, go to the next goal then. Thank you. And I know in December we only presented 3 goals. Felt it best to really address the responsible gambling as its own topic. So we have promote responsible gambling, and what that would entail is enhance access to problem gambling resources, and to do that we foresee collaborating with other agencies to keep the resource materials updated and accessible, updating signage for our licensees to post, and updating rules regarding problem gambling signage. Then also an effort to promote responsible gambling. We participate in problem gambling work groups, actively participating in those work groups to promote that responsible gambling, as well as support implementation and integration of any of those initiatives that come from those work groups. And lastly, enhance the statewide self-exclusion program by identifying ways for enhancement for current and future participants, as well as exploring rulemaking to expand programs to other licensed gambling activities. So I'll pause and ask for any input, feedback.
The only question I have, it has to do with the new problem gambling legislation that was just adopted by the legislature. They created a new work group, and I'm wondering if anyone remembers the language as it relates to the Gambling Commission and the Gambling Commission's participation and involvement in that new work group. Do you know, Tina, does it call for a commissioner, a staff member? It's just something
just a
wondering
second.
About.
Good question, and I will have it here in just a second. So the so they're to hold, it's to be a quarterly meeting to track progress of recommendations from the 2022 Legislative Problem Gambling Task Force's final report, which was submitted by the Gambling Commission, provide advice and feedback on state problem gambling program upon request by the Healthcare Authority, discuss emerging issues related to problem gambling and identify possible strategies for improvement. The advisory committee membership must include at a minimum at least one representative from each of the following: the Washington State Gambling Commission. So it doesn't identify specifically, it just says one representative from the Gambling Commission, that's all it says. One from lottery, horse racing, healthcare, tribal industry, an established business primarily engaged in the selling of food or drink for the consumption of on premises that offers punchboard pull tab social card games as a commercial stimulant, a representative from the Gambling Counselor Certification Committee, representative of a nonprofit problem gambling organization, and a representative of the recovery community, including at least one member with lived experience of problem gambling.
Is that an ongoing committee? I mean, there's no ending date for it, is there, in the legislation?
Nope, no ending dates.
So, and I think that committee is going to be a pretty meaty committee that will be making policy recommendations to the state legislature. So I think who the Gambling Commission decides to represent them there is going to be something worthy of thought. You know, who's going to be around for a while, and would it best be served by, I think Bud raised this issue, but would it be best be served by a commissioner or by staff? And I don't need to talk about that today, but I think that those are things that need to be considered.
Yeah, we could put that as a topic for the July meeting for commissioners to discuss. I'll run it by chair. And
yeah.
When does the work group start? Did I miss that?
it is all led by Healthcare Authority. This is a responsibility of the Healthcare Authority. So the Gambling Commission is not, we just provide a representative. Our role is different than the Problem Gambling Task Force, I believe. So.
Gotcha.
Okay, any other feedback on this one? Okay, and so lastly, to address our partnership, which is also part of our values and our goals, is The goal is to strengthen partnerships with governmental agencies, licensees, and the public, which to do that, we would engage tribal governments and federal, state, and local agencies, specifically by expanding upon current engagement activities, as well as promoting awareness of the agency and the work that it should be we do to keep gambling legal and honest in Washington state. And then also we would enhance communication and information accessibility to improve service. And specifically, we would engage with licensees and our tribal partners to discover how to make it easier for them to do business with us, just as we're doing, hopefully starting to do with engaging early, the survey that we have for our website redesign is an example there. But we also plan to expand the reach of our communications and update and modernize our licensee training programs, as well as identify and remove barriers to increase accessibility to information that we put out. So those are the goals and objectives and strategies in terms of strengthening our partnerships. Any feedback?
Have we had any concerns raised by our partners lately about these things? I have the sense that we're doing well here.
Nothing immediately comes to mind, but it doesn't, I think we want to always continue to, well, I think there are improvements that are needed to our licensee training program. I think as one of the former, after the commission meeting, yesterday it was, I think we still have old videos of training videos for a few things. And I think it's always important just to keep this up in the forefront of our mind, that while we may be doing good today, it is very important to always continue to keep that something that we're striving for. Communication, that's something you got to work on every day. And getting the feedback on our communication, I think, is important. Okay.
I think it looks good.
Thank you. So the last slide is, I don't know that well, I guess you do need to take a vote, but seeking to get approval of these goals, objectives, and strategies, and then we will go ahead and publish them in a report that we'll go ahead and implement. This will help us with budget development, and that will be coming before you. And then plan is to provide at least quarterly updates and check-ins with you all so that there aren't any surprises as we move forward, and just really keep this plan alive. And maybe in a few years, check in and make sure there aren't any adjustments that need to be made.
Sounds good. Thank you, Director Griffin. Are there any comments or questions from any commissioners or ex officios? Okay, do we have any public comments? I don't see any hands raised. All right. Is there anything in the chat, Julie?
No.
Okay, thanks. All right, do we have a motion?
Madam Chair, I move we adopt the goals, objectives, and strategies as outlined and presented today by staff for our strategic plan.
Seconded.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say, that should probably work. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. All right, motion passes.